All right, for everyone who's joined on time, welcome to this webinar about AI defense. My name is Lars-Erik Bråtveit. I work in Conscia, Norway. I've been working with security pretty much my entire career, which is now spanning past 25 years. So I really don't want to think about how old I am, but yeah. So AI is, I mean, it's on everyone's lips these days. We talk about AI every day. We read about AI every day. And I've personally worked with a lot of customers, both on the trying to figure out, how can we use this technology to benefit the company, and also the ones who actually have POCs in progress. And what I see is that we're moving really fast. It keeps speeding up, and unfortunately, having worked in computer security for a long time, that means that I see what I've always seen, and that is security comes after the innovation, which is something I wish we could, start with security at some point, but it's not going to happen this time either. So this is why I'm super, super happy that we have Jan from Cisco joining us, so he can talk about AI defense and how Cisco is going to help us meet some of the security problems that we see with AI and AI applications. So before I pretty much hand the ball over to him and he'll take you through it, just a few short things. One is, of course, our housekeeping slide. I'm sure, hopefully everyone can hear me. And if you can't hear me, hopefully you can use this slide to connect to your computer audio. As is the norm, everyone except the people here speaking are going to be muted. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. We'll, depending on the questions, we may just stop and answer them straight away, or we're going to save them to the end of the webinar. And of course, this webinar is being recorded, and you will be receiving a link after the recording is processed so that you can share it with your coworkers or share it with your family or anyone who's interested. If there are anyone here joining us who don't really know Conscia, just a quick intro to us. We are a pan-European company. We have been growing quite significantly since I started 3 years ago. And currently we're at 1,700 employees. And we're also extremely tech heavy. So around 1,000 of those 1,700 are engineers and analysts. And this is the culture we like. We've got quite a bit of customers. We work with our customers on a daily basis on critical infrastructure, on security, on our main areas of networking, hybrid cloud, data center, and of course, cybersecurity. And we've got happy customers and we've got happy employees. If you zoom out and you look at what does actually, Conscia deliver, well, we deliver what we call solutions and services. Solutions is pretty much you want to build something to make your business, make even more money or support the business. We will help you find the right equipment. We will have architects help you design an architect how to use that equipment in your infrastructure. And of course, we have design and we will consultants to help you install this. And we worked with a lot of customers who also, when they get the solutions, might want to have some assistance in managing and operating it. So we have a lot of services built around manage and operate infrastructure and also cybersecurity. So services on top of what we can deliver from the solution side. Another way of looking at the services is, everything is built on the network. We have a lot of services there, and then we can also deliver infrastructure as a service for those who need it. And we also have managed observability to make sure that we see if anything goes wrong. And on top of that, we have cybersecurity. So that was pretty much a very, very quick intro. And now I am going to hand it over to Jan Heidra, Field CTO for security and AI. He's been working a lot with us in the Nordics, even though he belongs to the Benelux. So I'm very, very happy to have you, Jan.
Thank you. Thanks, Lars-Erik, for the introduction. Yeah, I'm Jan Heidra, Field CTO for Security and AI here in the Benelux. And today I'm asked to share our view on building trust in AI and how we can leverage AI defense and also other technologies to help you secure the AI environment. But before we do that, I think it's good that we look together at the AI trends. What do we see is happening, and why do we need to look at certain security measures in the environment? And first of all, I think it's good to have a good understanding together where we are and how we see this market evolving. Because in the end, artificial intelligence is not something new. This is something that we've been talking about since the 19th, when it was with regards to machine learning. We've been through that big data era. And what we know is that, and how I call it often, is that in 2022, the AI field got democratized in a way that there was a UI available for end users, and it was called ChatGPT, and now everybody was able to use this technology. But we can go back for a decade or two and see that there was a lot of machine learning capabilities already available in a lot of security products, also from Cisco. And over the last couple of months, we've seen a couple of other trends popping up. First of all, every vendor was adding AI assistants to their products. So all marketing teams go wild and say every product is now AI powered. And in 2025, right now, we see a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations about agentic AI. So how is the assistant, the conversational interaction transitioning into an agentic world where agents are able to plan, reason, and work on tasks together and perform tasks? And these tasks can take hours or days, or in the future maybe even weeks, to get the outcome that's requested. And if you look at the latest GTC keynote, you also see a lot of focus on physical AI. So how are the models being embedded into the world around us? And when they're embedded in the world around us, you can imagine that security becomes even a more important discussion that we need to have with each other. And we see that happening. And actually last week I was with my son at a research department of some astronomy researchers, and they showed me a picture of the Milky Way. And then I thought, okay, we're all talking about AI and about artificial general intelligence and super intelligence. And at the end I thought, okay, there's so many things we have no clue about yet. And hopefully that keeps us with both feet on the ground when we're talking about artificial intelligence. And maybe you remember this one on the left, our first assistant, 1997. If you remember the name, it was Clippy. And nowadays you see humanoids, robots, powered by models, are literally introduced into almost every manufacturing plant these days. That's where we are. That's where we are today. And also another trend that I see is looking at some of the announcements from Andrej Karpathy. If you don't know Andrej Karpathy, he was one of the founders of OpenAI and afterwards moved to Tesla to be in the computer vision department for the self-driving cars. And in 2023, he wrote the hottest new programming language is English. 2023, so that's more than 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when he wrote that tweet. At that time, it was still a tweet. And I think he was right, because right now you see that with the IDEs that help programmers program, and also with another thing he mentioned to the world in February the 3rd of this year, he introduced vibe coding, where you can just sit down and relax and talk English to a model, and you get the computer code, the software code that you want. And that vibe coding, it's happening right now. We see that there are examples of school classes of kids that 10 to 12 years old here in the Netherlands that do a vibe coding class. They just code stuff. And the reason why I'm telling this is, think about what this means for security. that everybody is generating computer code, but nobody looks at security because they simply have no clue about what's actually in the code. They just ask the models to build something. With this AI explosion, I would say there are a couple of challenges that organizations are facing, and they are related to the infrastructure, to the deficit of trust, and the data gap, that they need a lot of data to actually make sure that these AI models are relevant for the organization. From an infrastructure perspective, it's about the network, that AI is very network bound, especially when we move to smaller models that need to talk to each other. We have a new network being introduced, the backend network, where GPUs need to talk to each other. And there's especially here in Europe, there's very much a focus on sovereign and private data centers, because we want to have control about the models. The models need to run in their own environment with models that are European, like Mistral, or trained in the local country. From a trust perspective, and there need to be a layer of security with a responsible AI framework, and we need to make it safe and trustworthy, and we'll talk about that today. And we'll also talk about the distribution of security, because the applications itself are changing. So what do we do at Cisco? We have an open ecosystem for AI where we invest $1 billion investment fund, where we invest in players like Mistral or for European models. We are in the Internet of Agents ecosystem with Agency. That's an open source initiative started by Cisco and now part of the Linux Foundation, that thinks about how the future Internet needs to look like, how agents talk to each other, how they find each other. We also train open source models. So we pick a Llama 3.1 model and we train it on our security data, and we push these security models to Hugging Face. We can talk about that later as well. And there's some partnerships that we have, for example, with ServiceNow, or partnerships with NVIDIA or AMD for the infrastructure. If you look at the infrastructure, Cisco is bringing to market the Secure AI Factory. And the Secure AI Factory means that what we have on the left side is the entire stack from storage, networking, compute, and the NVIDIA enterprise software layer. That's focused on where and how to run the models itself. But that's something that a lot of vendors can deliver. And our partnership with NVIDIA goes 2 steps further with regards to the Secure AI Factory that we blueprinted together and brought to market. And these steps are with regards to security and observability. So we as Cisco can deliver the end-to-end AI pods, so the infrastructure where to run these models, but also how to fuse security into the entire stack with the distribution of security enforcement points, and also looking at how to secure the models that are running on top of this infrastructure. And then the next column is about observability. And we need to understand what's going on into this model. We need to understand what's going on into the models, into the infrastructure, and bring that as actionable data into a platform like Splunk. First of all, let's focus on that distributed security. Distributed security, that's what we do with the hybrid mesh firewall, where the firewall is not a place in the network, but becomes a function, a distributed function across a lot of different platforms where you can enforce security policies. And AI workloads, they run in containers, in Kubernetes environments. So we want to move security policy enforcement as close to these AI workloads. And what we know is that eBPF, the extended Berkeley packet filter, is a technology, is an open source technology that lives in the kernel of the Linux environment. So we can push and we can learn and understand what's going on in the kernel. So we can see everything that's happening in this AI workload environment. And then based on that information, we can send it to Splunk for observability, for analysis, and we can push security policies back to this kernel with eBPF. That eBPF layer is being used in Cilium. Cilium is an open source container network interface, because every containerized environment needs a network interface, and Cilium is the open source version, and it was pushed to the community by Isovalent, and Isovalent is now part of Cisco, and we own that enterprise version of Cilium. And if you look at the Cilium adoption, especially across AI players, you see that there are a lot of large organizations using Cilium as their network security and observability layer in the container environment. So it's CoreWeave, it's a big GPU as a service hyperscaler, it's OVH Cloud in France, it's Microsoft, Google, AWS, Alibaba. They're all using this Cilium technology. And also OpenAI is listed on the website as a Cilium user. If you want to see the entire list, go to the GitHub website of Cilium, and you can find under users.md, you can find an entire list of organizations that are using this. And as I said, at Cisco, we now have an enterprise supported version of this technology to run in production environments. And that was more about the infrastructure. Let's now focus on the AI security. So if you look on the left, that's where we see the entire stack, right? Traditionally, it was infrastructure providing data to applications, and the applications were accessed by users. And now there's a new layer introduced. That's the model layer. That model layer is also introducing new risks. It's about business and reputational harm when the model is provided on the public website of an organization and it's answering questions that it's not supposed to answer. Or it's about the data security and privacy, which data is processed by the models, how it's trained, what's the training data that was put into these models. It's about the supply chain, where do the models come from? It's about traditional cyber attacks on the platforms where the models are running or on the models itself. And it's all about compliance. Compliance, where we see there's a lot of focus these days. At Cisco, we announced 2025 Cisco Cybersecurity Readiness Index, and it was a bit shocking when we were looking at the results, because 86% said they have experienced an AI-related security incident in the past 12 months. And probably it's even 100%, but the other 14% just don't know yet. Because if you look at the other stats, only 45% have resources and expertise for comprehensive AI security assessments. Turn that one around. That says 55% does not have expertise for AI security assessments. And we know that every organization is adopting AI, right? So a lot of people are adopting AI, but don't have the capabilities for an AI security assessment. I think that's shocking. That's why I think it's a good thing to see that in Europe, we see that there's a focus on AI safety and security with the European AI Act. It went into force in February of this year, where certain AI use cases are not allowed anymore. And we also see that in a few months, in the summer of 2026, see that all high-risk AI implementations need to provide and put some measures in place and some analysis in place to make sure that these implementations are secure. We see translation of this European AI Act into a lot of different countries where they are building frameworks for testing AI systems. And also in Norway, we've seen the draft AI Act to be translated into local regulation and come into force in the summer of 2026. So it's good to keep that in mind, that a lot of organizations and your customers will be forced to put AI security in place. And Europe is even focusing more on AI. Actually, last week on October 8th, there was the Apply AI strategy that was launched. And the EU Commission President von der Leyen actually said that whenever a company or public office faces a new challenge, the first question must be, how can AI help? And we'll see that will also translate into a lot of different capabilities that are required with regard to how can we make it secure when we add AI into every challenge that an organization is facing. So let's face the security conversation. When we talk about securing models, I talk about two things. It's safety and security. Safety, it's all about how is a model potentially impacting the user who's using the model in a harmful way. So that can be hallucinations, hate speech, off-topic conversations, toxic conversations, even self-harm that's sometimes exposed by these models. And then on the right side, we have that focus on security. So how can we secure and protect the model against unauthorized access, against attacks? Think about infrastructure compromise, and that's where our secure AI factory play comes in that we validated with NVIDIA, and how we do things like secure for prompt injections. Okay, security for AI. There are two focus areas that we need to dive into. It's accessing AI applications and it's building AI applications. First of all, let's focus on accessing AI apps. That's what we do with AI access, and that's part of our secure access SSE offering. So with our SSE offering, we can get visibility in the AI apps that organizations are using. And this is the same problem that we're solving as that we saw when the cloud got adopted. When the cloud got adopted, there were a lot of cool tools available in the market that enterprise IT was not providing to the employees. So what did the employees do? They went online, used a lot of these cloud tools, and IT had no visibility in which tools were used and was not able to provide security policies to these applications. We called it at that time shadow IT, and currently we have the same challenge now with shadow AI, that employees are using AI tools everywhere, and we need to get visibility. We need to detect okay, what are these tools? What are the risks of these tools? And then we need to provide protection and enforce data loss prevention, DLP policies on the applications that were detected. So this is some intelligent protection where different types of data can be detected, also prevent against attacks that are described in some of the frameworks like OWASP, LLM, MITRE Atlas. And it's good to understand that traditional DLP is more based on regex. So if we detect some kind of data, then we block it. And in this case, marketing would say there's AI under the hood. AI is looking at every prompt. So we need to contextualize and analyze the prompts to think about, okay, what could be the response of these prompts? And then we answer and can block some of these prompts. So how does it work? With the employees, we have secure access, the SSE offering in the middle, where we have now the AI access capability. And there's an input guardrail that's going to look at all the input prompts. What do we see in these prompts? Are there any prompt injections? Is there off-topic data? Is there already sensitive data in there? If not, then we can send it to the model itself, the third-party model that's running somewhere in the cloud. And then when the model answers, we have an output guardrail that's looking at, okay, the response of the model. And if we agree on, okay, this is what we want to share with the employee, then we send it back to the employee. This technology is part of our Advantage license in secure access. It's already there, and customers are able to use it. Okay, we were talking about accessing AI applications. Now we're going to focus on building AI apps. So the first party AI apps, when organizations build their AI applications themselves. So what do we see that's happening? We start at the bottom right. We see open source models combined with public data, and they end up in trained models that you can download on Hugging Face, for example. And these trained models, they move into production as production-ready models. These production-ready models, they are queried by users to make them more company-specific. We also see that vector databases are introduced. where company-specific data is vectorized, being embedded, so that the queries can actually answer company-specific questions. Right now, with the context window growing, we see sometimes vector databases are not necessary anymore, and we see a transition there as well. But in all these steps, there are safety and security risks. Safety and security risks that we need to address when an organization is developing their own secure AI models. And there's one more trend I wanted to highlight, is that on September 15th, so just a month ago, NVIDIA came out with this research report where they say small language models are the future of agentic AI. So we see that the future of agentic systems and the models itself is a bit moving away from these extremely large models that need to run across multiple GPUs but know everything about the entire world, to more smaller language models that are specifically trained for a certain task. We at Cisco do the same thing, and we train these foundation AI models specifically on cybersecurity data for cybersecurity use cases. And we see that in the future of agentic AI as well. And these models are sometimes 10 to 30 times cheaper to actually run compared to these massive foundational models that we've seen in the past. There's also an impact of these small language models because compute requirements go down for a single model. That's a good thing. When the requirements go down, these smaller models, they can be run in a lot of different places in the infrastructure, not just in the data center anymore. We also see that in agentic systems, probably the number of models will increase. So we see more models running next to each other. And the distribution of these models will also result in bigger focus on network connectivity, on latency, on security and observability between all these agents that talk to each other. But there's one more thing. When we start to use multiple different models next to each other in a specific agentic system, then we see that all these different models often have different built-in guardrails. Because a model provider puts guardrails in, but they are never the same. Every model provider puts different guardrails. So that means that you as an organization, as a customer, you end up with inconsistent security across all the models that are in your environment. And what we also see is that the models can be easily being broken when they are fine-tuned. After fine-tuning, we see that the built-in guardrails are often screwed up. They don't work anymore. So what organizations need is enterprise guardrails, a common layer of security across all the models that are in place and being used within the organization. This is a key requirement to assure a certain level of security of all the models, and also when we need to be compliant to these new European AI regulations that we see popping up in every country. So what do we do at Cisco? There are a couple of focus areas where we can help with this challenge. The first one is the supply chain, and we'll talk about AI supply chain scanning, and afterwards I will talk about the development and the deployment phase of AI applications. But let's first focus on supply chain scanning. Because what we see on Hugging Face, if you don't know Hugging Face, it's like the GitHub. What GitHub was for the software developers is now Hugging Face for the AI developers. It's a platform where developers can download models and training data sets. Right now, there are more than 2 million models, and I believe every 7 seconds, new models are being uploaded to Hugging Face. And everybody can upload models to Hugging Face. So that means that there are also models in there with malware, with malicious code in there, with malicious intent, with weights that are tampered with. So, or with certain bias in there. So what we need to do is we need to scan, and that's where Cisco and Hugging Face started a partnership earlier this summer in August, where we said, okay, what we're going to do is a scanning engine that's going to scan every single model that's uploaded to Hugging Face. And that what we do is we check on the malicious code, we look at IP compliance, we look at where these models come from, and we create a hash file out of that. And that hash, we can share that with Cisco security enforcement points. So when we see this popping up in secure access, our ZTNA, our SSE offering, we can block the download of risky models. If we see that in our email offering or in our secure endpoint offering or in our firewall, when we see this file passing by, then we can block these malicious models from actually entering the organization. There's also an open source capability with ClamAV. We introduced that ClamAV is now able to detect the deserialization risks in these model files and scan the models. So you can also take a look at that one. So that was about supply chain scanning and the need to make sure that malicious models don't enter a customer's organization. Now we're going to focus on the product AI Defense. And with AI Defense, we're still talking about that first-party AI applications. So developers are building AI apps within the organization, running them in the customer clouds, in their Azure, AWS, Bedrock environment, or Google, or they run on-prem in their own data centers, running on a Red Hat OpenShift environment, for example. And what we see is that looking at the threat landscape, we have the OWASP top 10 for large language models on the left, where OWASP is generating a list of model vulnerabilities. Things like prompt injections, and maybe think about prompt injections, think about SQL injections that we know for a long time, where you send a certain query to an SQL database, and if in that query, if you drafted that in a certain way, then the databases started to spit out a lot of data that it was not supposed to share. We see the same thing happening with prompt injections. There are also things like supply chain vulnerabilities that we talked about. It's about system prompts that sometimes are shared with the users that are not supposed to be shared. And on the right, we see the MITRE Atlas framework. We know MITRE from the MITRE ATT&CK framework, where it's used to model and look at different EDR capabilities from different vendors. Now they also documented the techniques being used when attackers are focusing on models and how they attack models. So the engine behind AI Defense. So what we do, AI Defense is a SaaS-based model engine. So it's an engine that's running in a cloud. And what does this model do? A couple of different things. So it's about algorithmic red teaming. It's about threat intelligence that we feed into this model engine, and we look at policy and taxonomy. And all this information that's running in that model engine will then move to the AI Defense software to do model validation and do runtime protection to generate guardrails to protect AI models. I will talk a little bit about that different capabilities. So AI Defense can do a couple of things. One, it's able to do AI cloud visibility. So when the AI models are running in the cloud, for example, AWS Bedrock, Azure OpenAI, or in Google in the near future, we can identify the AI assets. So we can integrate with our multi-cloud defense API into the APIs of the hyperscaler. And we create that inventory of all the AI models that are running into the organization. That's the first thing that we need to have, the visibility of which models are running. The second step is that we can do that AI supply chain risk management to find out which models are coming into the organization. That's the detection phase. And the next step is that we can do model and application validation. And that's where we're going to use a technology called algorithmic red teaming. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then with that outcome of that validation, we can build the guardrails and place guardrails around these models to secure them. All technologies that are available in AI defense. But let's focus on that AI model and application validation, because validation is required to find vulnerabilities in the apps itself. So in the AI application, in the models that are running in the background of these applications. And what we hear from AI application developers is that it takes weeks to do a proper red teaming exercise for AI applications. And we know pen tests in the traditional cybersecurity world. Now we need to do red teaming and pen tests for the AI apps that are being built by them. And this takes weeks. And what's important to understand is that the actual red teaming takes weeks. Organizations need to have the capabilities for it to actually perform the red team exercise. But what we also see is that the rate of improvements and the number of models that are being developed and published is so fast that the models under the hood are changing quite rapidly. And every time you change the model under the hood of an application, you need to start this red teaming exercise again. So what we published and came out with is a technology called algorithmic red teaming, where marketing would say, where we use AI to pen test AI. So we start sending thousands and thousands of prompts from this engine and send thousands of prompts to the model that you want to validate. And then in that exercise, we find vulnerabilities when these models go rogue. And with certain questions that you don't want to get answered, we don't try one prompt, but we try hundreds of different prompts to get to that answer and see where this model goes rogue. This is actually built on an open source technology and on a research paper that was published by a team from an ex-Harvard professor, Yaron Singer, and some people from Yale University. And the research paper is called Tree of Attacks, Jailbreaking Black Box LLMs Automatically. So everybody can take a look at this paper. This is what we use in the background, and this is the technology that we embedded into Cisco AI Defense. We also used the same technology in one of the articles that we wrote recently. For example, we used algorithmic red teaming when we pen tested the DeepSeek model. And what we did, we picked the harm bench dataset, picked 50 malicious prompts, and sent these 50 malicious prompts to a number of models that were available at that time. And you see that there was a huge difference in security and safety focus that these model providers put into their models. Because 100% success rate in this case is not a good sign, to be clear. That means that all the harmful prompts that we sent to the model were all automatically answered by the model. So with AI defense, there's the focus on these three things, right? Discover the assets in your environment, detect the AI risks, the vulnerabilities in the models itself, and then generate a protection layer, generate the guardrails. From a deployment perspective, we can do that in three different ways. So the AI defense solution can be fully SaaS. So data plane and control plane run fully in the Cisco cloud. The second option is that we have a control plane that's in the Cisco cloud, where we feed and we bring all the new vulnerability information. And the data plane is running in the customer VPC, so in AWS or in Azure or in GCP. And the last option is the on-prem option. So the control plane is still cloud, but the data plane for the validation run, the algorithmic pen testing, and also the guardrail data plane fully run on-prem on an AI pod, on our AI infrastructure because we need GPUs for that to run these capabilities. Because for all these guardrails, there's also some models running in the background, and that all runs in the data plane on-prem at the customer. So there's still a control plane that's running in the cloud to also make sure that we can update the data plane with all the new vulnerabilities and scans and capabilities that we wanna test with. That's the on-prem version. This is the on-prem version. So you have in the cloud the AI defense engine that I talked about, and then on-prem we have an AI pod with the validation service, the runtime service, and the runtime traffic and the attack traffic for the validation. That all stays in the customer environment. So there are no prompts being leaked to outside of the customer environment. Okay, how do we integrate? There are a couple of integration capabilities with AI Defense. The first one is an AI API integration. So we have AI Defense here on the right, and you have your cloud with the Gen AI application on the left. And what we do is we integrate with the API of AI Defense. So when an application prompt is entering your cloud in your application sends a request to the AI Defense environment. What do we know about this prompt? What do you think? Should we allow it or not? And then we send a verdict back to the Gen AI app. And the application itself is going to make the decision whether to allow or block the prompts or model response. So we just give that information to the application. It's purely API-based integration. The second one is the gateway integration. Then we're literally in between. Then you need to change the model URL from the language model to the AI defense gateway so that we see all the prompts coming in. And then there is an ingress policy being used, looking at the application prompt. And then if it's approved, we send the prompt to the model itself. Then the model is going to respond with output from the model itself. Then we're going to look at the egress runtime guardrails to see if we're gonna allow this response from the model, and then we send the approved output back to the Gen AI application. And in this case, it's Cisco AI Defense who's making the decision of allowing or blocking the responses from the model. At Cisco Live in the US, we had an announcement that Cisco AI Defense is now also integrated with NVIDIA NeMo. So open models developed with NeMo can now also be validated and secured by AI Defense. And actually the same week, Jensen Huang talking at GTC keynote in Paris, he was talking about the integration with Cisco AI Defense to provide runtime visibility and monitoring for applications and agents deployed on NVIDIA AI platform. So you see a partnership and NVIDIA talking about the capabilities that we bring to secure the environment. Okay, when we talked about Secure AI Factory, we also mentioned that next to security, there's a focus on observability. And you see, we have the full stack of infrastructure where Cisco can play a role from their compute with UCF, with GPUs, and the networking for front-end and back-end GPU networking. We partner with some storage vendors over there. We focused on security. I talked about the fused security into the infrastructure with Isovalent and Cilium, as close to the containers as possible. We talked about securing the models from supply chain scanning and also from a model testing perspective with AI Defense. But with Splunk, we have some capabilities for AI application observability. Application observability, where we look at end-to-end visualizations of interactions of these agents, where we can troubleshoot agents, LLM responses. And this becomes very critical data when looking at what organizations are doing and how important these agents become when they start to make decisions in your organization. So we've seen too often that there's too much focus on, I need GPUs, I need infrastructure, but we need to look at it end to end. And that's why that secure AI factory is resonating quite well in the market at the moment. There's also the specific AI infrastructure platform observability in Splunk with specific dashboards to look at, okay, how is my infrastructure doing? It's the information that we deliver, and actually the one that I like the most is also the recent announcements with regards to the AI pods itself. So the specific dashboard on the AI infrastructure that can go up to a level of detail where we talk about the token latency or inter-token latency, where we talk about the total input of tokens, the total output of tokens, where we talk about the first time to token, how much time did it take to start answering. So really relevant data when we talk about tokenomics, how is my platform performing and how can we improve that. Okay, some open source stuff. Foundation AI security. Foundation AI is a research team within Cisco that's developing open source models. And you can find them on Hugging Face. It's foundation.ai, where they publish a lot of models that are trained on our security data. And you can go to the Hugging Face, you can download these models, and there are multiple models right now. There's the foundational model, there's the reasoning model, there's an instruct model, and there's an entire website of use cases where you can use these models. They can be used in a SOC for acceleration, they can be used for threat modeling, and there's actually an entire cookbook available on the website, on the GitHub actually of them, where a lot of the use cases are described. So you can look at all the use cases on how to use the latest instruct model, for example, for incident summarization, for MITRE mappings, for red team planning, a lot of use cases where these latest models can be used. So take a look at it, use it in your favor. In the first slide, where I talked about the different trends and the different phases of AI, I also mentioned the agentic world. And I think it's good that we focus a little bit on what's happening in the agentic world. Because with AI Defense up till now, we were talking about that interaction between a user and an AI app with backed by a model, and how we can secure the prompts and the responses that we get. But in the Internet of Agents, we get multiple agents that talk to each other, but also need context. Then these agents will interact with tools, with other databases to get their information, to act on that and share their outputs with other agents. And this Internet of Agents is something that we've been working on for some time now at Cisco, and we'll talk about that. But there's one interesting protocol that's being adopted here. That's the MCP protocol, the Model Context Protocol, where users, they talk to an agent, and these agents, they need to talk to databases or tools. And traditionally, there was an integration with databases and tools with APIs, but that's very code heavy and complex to integrate with all these tools, right? And MCP is Model Context Protocol, where we give the model, an agent is based on a model, where we give the agent context. And this context is the data that it gets from all these different tools. And MCP is like the USB-C for this agentic world, that we have a common way of integrating with all the tools, with all the context to get that information. But when we introduce MCP as a protocol, there are a lot of different security steps that we need to think about. Because it's, first of all, it's okay, which tools is MCP exposing with an MCP server? Which capabilities do I expose? Do I want to expose all MCP servers to my agents? What are What's the reachability? Can my agent go to every MCP server? We need to monitor what these agents are doing. So there's an end-to-end security problem popping up when we introduce this agentic world. A few weeks ago, there was the MCP Dev Summit, where our senior director was talking about securing MCP in an agentic world. So take a look at this video if you have time. It's going to talk about the MCP risks that we see, and also he's brainstorming about what role an MCP gateway could play, because we need to authorize agents, and we need to think about identity. We need to think about how to access different tools. So a lot of security risks and security measures that need to be taken in this agentic space. Take a look at it, and I want to say stay tuned for more on this topic. Also, when you look at the OSI model, there are actually, in that Internet of Agents, there are a couple of new layers being added. It's about the model context protocol. I mentioned that one. It's about agentic connect protocol. It's about agent to agent, A2A protocol. There are also other protocols now being introduced. Recently, there was the APP, the agent payment protocol, how agents are going to do financial transactions. So there's a new world of protocols being introduced where we need to think about security. And we as Cisco, we started the ecosystem initiative called Agency. This is an open source collection of organizations with organizations like LangChain, Galileo, and there are 75 plus more organizations. And now, recently, a few weeks ago, this initiative was given to the Linux Foundation. Some big names that are now the forming members: Cisco, Dell, Google, Oracle, Red Hat, and together developing that future standard of the Internet of Agents, where for the Internet we defined TCP, DNS. We now need to define all these protocols that are going to define that Internet of Agents. And some first output of how this looks like. You have multiple agents, agent 1, agent 2, that talk to each other with this ACP or A2A, agent connect protocol, agent communication protocol, agent to agent protocol. And then to the lowest layer, these agents talk with MCP, to data sources, to functions, to tools. And then on the top, you see an agentic directory. And we need to generate directories that makes it possible for users to find agents and for agents to find each other in an automated way. And we need to introduce identity layer here. How can we define the identity of an agent? And when an agent is going to behave on my behalf on my data and operate and do stuff, does it acquire my identity? Or, and if it does, how do I in the logging differentiate if I performed the task myself or that my agent performed the task? Now, all kind of conversations that we need to have. And is role-based access control, is that good enough for this situation? Or do we need to move to TBAC? It's about task and transaction-based access control. Agent 007. Thank you. And there are some agent threats, right? We talked about identity. We need to make sure that we access in the right way and that we monitor the behavior of all these agents. Stay tuned on this. There will be a lot more on agentic security in a few weeks that you'll see also from Cisco. I'm now looking at Lars-Erik to see if there are any questions that we need to answer.
If I'm unmuted, you can also hear me. So there was one I've been answering a little bit, but I want to have your input on this as well. First one was, do we have infrastructure to compete in the AI race in the EU, or will the EU keep relying on the US entirely? So I
Yeah,
answered
that's a
that
good
the EU is,
question.
yeah.
That's a very good question. And if you see what's going on right now with a lot of investments, Europe is investing in European AI factories. Actually, last Friday, there was an announcement for some of the new European AI factories. Also, one of them is going to be opened in the Netherlands. I know that service providers in your country are developing AI factories, where I had some recent conversations with. So yeah, every country is investing, and I think that it's a good thing that we're investing. I think we need to own our own intelligence as Europe. And that's why I'm also happy to see that with the security solutions like this that we just talked about, that we can run them completely on-prem, keep data plane and the validation capabilities in some of these AI factories that we're building. Yes, it's a rat race. Yes, it's almost there's a lot of investments going on, and I think Europe woke up and we're investing where we need. Yeah, that will be my answer to your question.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And the EU has some strategic initiatives and some funding made available as well. So so there's definitely support as far as I can see in the EU for building the factories. So and also, you know, most of the models that most people use are based on the English language, and we also need specific countries to actually start building local language as well. So
Exactly,
that is, yeah.
exactly. And I can share a link about that as well to the team here about what Europe was doing. Let me see where I have it. I shared it recently. There, EU expense. That was a news article from October 10th. So that's literally on last Friday. I will put it in the chat. EU expands
Perfect.
network AI factories, strengthening its AI continent ambition. It's from last Friday. I will also share the tree of pruning, the tree of attacks, the research paper I just mentioned in my conversation. I can also share with you the open source models that Cisco published on Hugging Face with the specific security use cases. Yeah, and if you want to take a closer look at Cisco AI Defense and how it can help you, yeah, reach out to your Conscia team. They are happy to help you with that. And I think that there's a social responsibility for all of us to make sure that all the AI applications that are brought to production right now, that we do it in a safe and secure way, especially when we move into that agentic world where the agents start making decisions on our behalf. I think that's the least we can do. And sometimes I feel that in most of the RI implementations right now, it's about AI is the answer. What was your question? And that they rush to implementation and production without looking at security in a proper way. So I think there's something that we can all do together to make sure that we do that in the right way. Were there more questions, Lars-Erik?
That was pretty much it. We had a little bit of a chat around, you know, AI, smaller models and stuff like that, but there were no direct questions. So yeah, I think we're on time, and I think that is pretty much it. Thank you, Jan. This was really good. It's always a pleasure to hear you talk about AI. So it's and if anyone has any more questions, again, reach out to your local Conscia team, reach out to me if there's anything. I am definitely up for talking about AI security, AI ethics, and pretty much the state of the world. So so yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and I guess we'll see you next time.
See you. Thank you.
Thanks.